I remember when I first joined Elite, I was very skeptical, and I was actually kind of pissed because I just spent a lot of money, and I was like, I better get my freaking money's worth out of this thing.
Unlike so many people, as many people will invest in something and then forget that they actually have to invest their time and their energy and the expense into it as well. But you've always been all in. You're there and you show up every week.
This is a really expensive thing for me to invest in, but I just kept telling myself, this is your moment. You have to do this now.
What is it for you that you think makes Elite stand out from other programs? Does it sit unique versus other things that you have gone through, and if so, why?
I haven't seen any sort of program in the past that does anything close to what Elite does. Having access to mentors, and not just one, like multiple, and they're all successful in different areas. I can't even describe the value of that.
Has it been straightforward? Has it been difficult? Like, what's that look like?
If you want to talk numbers real quick, 6 months it's been. I started in June, it's now December. In June, I was at $8,000 in monthly revenue. 1 month later, I doubled it. I was at 19,000. August, I was at 13,000. September, 30,000. October, 40,000. November, 35,000.
Right, Waldo, back again, man. It's good to have you here.
Yeah.
So last time we spoke, I believe you were hovering around the 10K a month point, and then somewhat coasted for a little bit, correct me if I'm wrong, and in the last 4 months, you've then now skyrocketed to about 40K a month, which is obviously a big change in the business. So for obvious reasons, keen to get you on to unpack that so everyone else can benefit from that as well. Can you talk me through what's happened really since we last spoke and hosted a call like this?
Yeah, man. Honestly, I love talking with you because it just reminds me, when you're in the day to day, you kind of forget, feels like you're just grinding along and you don't feel like you're growing at all. But when you look at it on a timeline, especially the last time we talked, it's like, oh wait, yeah, I am growing and growing at a pretty significant rate. But when you're looking at it day to day, it is hard to look at it that way. Yeah, there's nothing been easy or even special about my journey. Other than really just working with you and some of the elite leaders, just giving me that guidance. I know in one of your ads you referenced having a Sherpa. I love that reference because that's basically it. I think where I do really well, not necessarily last time we talked, I was telling you that, I've coasted along for 15 years, as an entrepreneur. And, for a lot of people that are entrepreneurs, you can probably relate to this, is that, it's lonely at the top when you're the boss, you're the leader. People look to you for where are we going? Where's the direction of this? And, you don't always have all the answers. And so I think where I really struggle was, I have all the ideas, I have the skills, I have the abilities, I definitely have the ambition and willpower to do everything. I just sometimes don't really know what the right path is. And having somebody who's walked the path, knows kind of where to take that and which direction to go. And when I have those ideas, to bounce those ideas off people that have done it, there's something, even if it's just the confidence that I have, knowing that, hey, I'm thinking about going in this direction. What do you think? And either the confirmation that, yeah, that's the right path, or just pivot a little bit to this direction. I think it's really what I would say has accelerated my growth significantly. It's hard for me to kind of come up with that path, but once the path is outlined for me, it's easy for me to follow and replicate. And a lot of the things I've done, I can just say have been just a couple little things that I've tweaked. One of them being I've raised my prices. I know that's something that you initially said early on, but I read a lot of books, done a lot of workshops, not even through you. And that's been kind of the ongoing theme: charge more. You can charge more, then you can offer more, and you can profit more, less headaches, all that. And so I think there was definitely imposter syndrome with that, where you think, well, no one's going to pay double for my services. And when you start asking for double, and people are like, yeah, absolutely. You're like, why haven't I been doing this? And so I think a huge part of my revenue spike happened to do a lot with that, which is let me just charge more. And what do I got to lose? Well, I'll just lose a client. Yeah. So, normally when we were pricing our things out, we were trying to just be competitive. We're thinking, okay, let's charge $3,000 because that's what the client will say yes to, and we'll get more clients. And then it's just a volume thing. And that's where my head was at. And then the minute I was like, all right, let's charge $10,000 instead of $3,000. well, now that's 3 clients that I would have done 3 clients worth of work, but I'm doing the same amount of work, but I have less headaches, so then I can be more intentional with our work. We could be more quality driven, and the revenue it's still there the same. And any entrepreneur will tell you it's really hard to get clients, and that's why they say it's cheaper to keep a client than it is to get a new one, and it's true. I mean, just the customer acquisition cost alone, or just the headache of going through the sales process and all that. So just getting 1 client versus 3 clients, I mean, just that mentality change really just I think was a big part of it as well. But yeah, really just having a roadmap, a place to say, okay, this is where I'm at. What are the constraints in my business? What do I need to focus on, spend time on? And then just kind of like chiseling away at that every single day to get to kind of where I'm at. And the numbers show like, yeah, things are really going in the upwards direction for sure.
Nice, man. That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear it. It's so interesting with the pricing because I think everyone's gone through that at some point. Like me especially. Like I told a story often, but I remember when I first seeked outward mentorship and I was working with Sam Ovens, and he'd said to me, "You need to quadruple your prices, Jordan." And I was like, "Quadruple?" And then we doubled our revenue like overnight, and we maintained since. Like we never dropped. And I think the interesting thing that people don't consider with price increases is like, sure, your close rate might drop a little bit, but if we're doubling our prices, but our close rate drops by 5%, then it doesn't like matter. It's still like an absolute no-brainer. Like the compensation on the back end is still massive, and it's a hard one. It's a hard one, and it all just comes from those mental barriers. And it's not about. I often see people say, "Oh, well, I can only charge this much because my competitors charge this." Well, no, it's about the perception of the value of your service based on all the stuff that you've done. And you've been in the game for a long time now with a lot of case studies, so it was about time those prices got increased.
Yeah. That's the thing is we offer a great product, and I have clients still to this day for 15 years. They were one of my first clients. We just do great work, and so that was never the issue. It was never the service deliveries. Like we're over generous with our delivery. We're always doing all the stuff. It's like, why are we not charging a premium? Because we are a premium agency. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I think for a while I was really proud of my conversion rate. It was like 95%. I was just like converting all these things. And right when I joined your elite program in June, I actually pre-committed to doing Alex Hormozzi's workshop in Vegas. And so I ended up doing both kind of like in the same month. And one thing that I took from his workshop was that he was saying if your conversion rate's over 60%, your prices are too low. And that just for some reason just unlocked something in my brain. I was like, oh my God, like I thought like having a really high conversion rate's good. It's like, no, you're charging too low. And yeah, ever since then, I thought if I was below 60%, I just was a bad salesperson. I thought it was something with the sales process, but it's like, no, you should have. And I was talking with Rory, one of the elite leaders, and he was like, yeah, we convert at 25%. I was like, oh my God, 25%, that's horrible. And he goes, no, we just are very specific with the people we want to work with. And most people are just not qualified. We actually turn people down because we rather work with people that can afford our services because we have great services. And yeah, something about that just resonated with me. And like for some reason, I just had that sort of like misconception of, bad conversion rate means you're just doing bad business or have a bad product or bad offer or whatever. And it's like, no, actually, like you're better off going for those very specific clients that can afford you and will actually have a lot of success with working with you. And so, yeah, that was a big unlock for me for sure.
It's a big one. It's great advice from Hormozi. Yeah, I was going to say when you said that, I would go as far to say 25%. Like I was going to say 25. If you're above, I'd probably actually say 30%. If you're above 30%, you definitely need to increase your prices. And then like as long as you're at minimum 25. But yeah, Rory's signing up like 5-figure retainers minimum, so it doesn't matter to him if it's only 1 in 4 that he's converting. That's awesome, man. Did you get any? I actually had that written down because I know that you went to the Hosi Workshop. Was there anything else significant you took away from that?
Yeah, I mean a lot. It was a 2-day event. You're in a conference room for 12 hours, and then it was just a 2-day thing, and then so you're doing for 12 hours, and then the second day he was like. After 12 hours, so at this point it was like 24 hours of just being lectured. they're like, you can stay for another hour, and Alice is going to do a live demonstration. So I'm actually in the audience in one of his YouTube videos because he did like a live video in front of us, and that was really cool. But yeah, he says in the beginning of the workshop, they don't let you record anything. You have to take notes, like handwritten notes. And he's like, you're going to get a lot of information these next 2 days. What I would recommend is that when you're on your flight home, try and write down 3 things that you're going to like use the most in the next like 3 months, because otherwise you'll just be overwhelmed and you'll try and tackle too many things. He goes, just take 3 key points and try and apply that to your business. And so that was kind of my takeaway. I actually have a notebook. I took so many notes. And so like even the other day, they have like all these different experts. So like someone's in sales, someone's in ads, someone's like in content, and all. So you have like just an hour with each person, and then they all do a presentation. And so I was like writing things down, and the other day, so this was like 6 months ago. And so the other day I was like, what did he say about so I like went in my notes and I was like, oh, okay, this is what it's supposed to be. So yeah, I think I'm still like digesting all that information, which is like, I think that's what's different about going to these workshops versus having like a team of mentors like a lead, is that I think you have a lot of follow-up questions afterwards. Like, I would love to kind of go back and be like, well, what were you saying about that one thing? Because in the moment, it didn't really apply to my business. But then 6 months later, you're like, oh, wait, now I'm at that progression. Like, I have all these questions now about what you were saying. But with like a lead, it's like we meet once a week. So it's like, as I progress my business, I have like unlock new questions and unlock new stages. And then I have the opportunity to be in front of these panel experts. And so I think that's kind of the big difference. But yeah, I mean, he's really impressive. Hermosi's my age. And so, but like, I feel like light years away from him in that regard. It's just the way he operates. Even just seeing him do his content was actually pretty interesting, because he's just on. Like, for me, if I used to be in the YouTube game for a little bit, and I'm super introverted, but super hard for me to record. I'm doing, and Jordan, I know you'll relate to this. I'm doing like multiple takes. It'll take me for like to shoot a minute video. Like I was doing a VSL the other day, and it's like, took me like all morning to do like a 3-minute intro. But Hermosi, he's just like, he looks at his content expert and he goes, what's the hook? And he's like, it's something about a banana. And then he just like, he will just improv it, do this whole thing, get all the audience involved. Like, and he recorded like 10 1-minute videos within like 10 minutes. Like, it was like, it was so impressive to watch. And just his public speaking abilities, just his vast knowledge of just all industries. Like, the YouTube video that he did for an hour just was amazing, that he had the audience just like describe their business in 30 seconds. He wrote it on a whiteboard, and then he did an hour-long video just breaking down all their industries, how he would run ads if they were them. Like, the dude's a genius, like, honestly. And it was really cool kind of watching him work. But I think another takeaway too was that the normalization of the success in that room. And I think something that I always struggle with is like my surrounding community, right? So like my friends, people like that are in my immediate life, love them to death, but like they have all these limiting beliefs and ceilings and normal salary jobs. Being around people that are all doing $1 million in revenue a year, it allowed me to unlock that kind of glass ceiling again, where it was, he's no smarter than me. He's, I feel like I have better skills than him. I have like, and so just having that like validation of like, oh, it's like, I can do it too. Like, he's doing $10 million in revenue. I'm not, but like just having that normalization of like, he's not some superhuman. He's not some crazy celebrity. He doesn't have this exceptional gift. He's just a normal person that works hard, and it just has this focus on this one thing. And I think that was like a really big thing for me as well. It's just realizing that like I can make it too, but I just need to stay on the path,
Yeah. That's amazing, man. I love that. That's such a cool experience as well. There's nothing like a mastermind based event. Like, there truly isn't. I'm so excited to bring back a session next year. We've been so busy with Elite and an agency launch this year, but next year I can't wait to get back in the room with other agencies and relaunch the mastermind. It's something that I even personally will never not do. Next week, and literally for 3 days, Monday through to Thursday, I'm at a mastermind. I'm going down to London, and it's beautiful because it's all different entrepreneurs, not just in the same industry. And it's just, I can't wait for that. The key is the advice that Hormozi gave you at the start. That's something I had to learn through making the mistake of actually not doing that and getting lost in shiny object. The key is taking all that information and just picking a few very small things that you're going to apply. That's the difficult part. It's a difficult part of anything in business, really, because opportunity is everywhere. There's always a different angle to take. There's always a new service to offer. There's always a different funnel to launch. And so picking and choosing how you spend your time is so crucial, which is why we try and build those roadmaps in Elite and try and make things a bit clearer. I would love to just kind of backtrack a little bit and just explore, because I know you were at kind of a very similar revenue level for quite a long period of time. And so I would like to understand from your perspective, or actually what I want to understand is your perspective and how your perspective has changed from being at the revenue level you were to where you are now. Like what are some of the things that you have learned at this point that you're now like, oh, why didn't I realize that before? Why was I stuck at that revenue level?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard question to answer because there's so many things that I could say. I think the biggest shift I had was I thought I was not replaceable. And I think in some regards I'm not. Just because I have 20 years experience, to have to clone me is like, it's just, it doesn't really, they'd have to go through 20 years of what I went through. Right. But I think that was sort of a glass ceiling. So I thought within my agency, okay, I'm only going to make 6 figures. Right. So it's just a limit on my time, how many 40 hours a week. So I started getting stuck in this shiny object syndrome where I was like, okay, let me just replicate this. So like I started buying businesses and then applying some, like redoing the website, doing the marketing, doing all this, like applying my skills that I would apply for clients and applying it for these businesses that I bought. And what I learned through that, so my idea behind that was that, all right, I'm making 6 figures with this agency, I'll make 6 figures with this other business, and then I'll just multiply that with all the different businesses. And what I learned is that, and I've bought and purchased multiple different businesses, all from different industries. And what I've learned is that no business is easy. Like it needs your 100% focus. And I just kept hitting ceilings with everything. And I was just like, I was making a little bit more revenue, but it was like 3 times the amount of work because now I'm running this agency, now I'm doing this. And my girlfriend will tell you it's just exhausted all the time. All I do is work and weekends and this and that. So the biggest takeaway that I've got is, and I might have stole this from Hosi, but it's just like focus, pick a lane. And that was like something that really took me a while to break because I was like, he's wrong. There's no, like, I could do both. Like, but when I finally just started doing that, putting all my eggs in one basket, that's where I started unlocking that revenue growth. And, obviously there's a lot of other elements to it, like, a lot of your guidance and, other mentors and workshops. But just like the idea of just like in January this year, I was like, I'm going to go all in on this. Like, what do I got to lose? I'm going to go all in this. So I actually sold one of my businesses in December. I made a little bit of cash and I was like, instead of like spending this on vacations or a new car or anything like that, I'm like, I'm just going to take this money. I'm going to invest it in what I'm like a business that I'm really good at. And so I was asking myself, what am I really good at? I'm like, well, I've been doing this agency thing for 15 years. Like if I was going to bet on anything, it would be myself. Like this thing that I have this unfair advantage at that I'm just so dang good at. Why am I going to buy a restaurant? Why am I going to buy this business on Biz Buy Sell or whatever? Like I was like, I know this space. I've lived it almost my entire career. So like, why am I not like, I'm going to bet on myself. So I started like spending money on ads. I started doing all this stuff. And I struggled the first 4 or 5 months. I just really struggled. I almost spent all the money I made. And I was very frustrated because I was like, oh my God, like I could have spent this money on a vacation or I could have spent this thing on things I enjoy. And I've just wasted it on ads. I just wasted it on all these things. But then I committed to myself. I said, do this for 12 months. Do this for 12 months. And I'm like, if at the end of 12 months, I give you permission to quit and do something else. But I was like, give it 12 months. And that was something I took from Hosi. And I was just like, all right, let me just think of it like that. And yeah, I struggled. I hated every day going to work. I hated like, just look at my bank account getting lower and lower and lower. I'm like spending all this money, not bringing any revenue in. I was like, I hate this. And then there was just like, all of a sudden it just started, revenue started coming in, jobs started coming in. We started raising our prices, money started coming in. And, the money that was going out was coming back in and then just getting repaid. And then I was like, okay, this is working. But at that month 3, that's usually where I would have quit. That's usually where I would quit. But because I committed to 12 months, I was like, okay, this is actually working. And I just took that initial little bit of momentum for me to just like power through. And then I think the big thing too was that we talked about workshops and we're talking about elite. I think a lot of people probably are in my seat where they're like, this is a really expensive thing for me to invest in. And you're thinking like, what am I going to learn in 2 days? Like, is this like, that's a lot of money. And for me, it was a lot of money. Like going to Hosi's workshop or joining Elite or joining the academy, it's, I don't have a lot of cash. Like I'm not just like flush with this. I'm like, all right, I'll spend my weekend in Vegas with Hosi. It was like, no, this is going to like, it's like either I take a vacation with this money or, that I desperately need because I'm exhausted, or I invest in myself. But I just kept telling myself, you're going to learn something in those 2 days, or you're going to learn something in Elite that I'm going to leverage to then make me a 10x or 100x multiple to apply to my business. So like, it's an investment. It's not like I'm just paying something and just throwing it out the door and like, you're gonna give me one little tip. It's like, no, this is going to be something that I'm gonna be able to apply as a life skill that's going to help me generate 100K revenue, so that was kind of a big shift. It's just like, was just this, like, I'm turning 35 next year. And I was like, well, you're getting too old. It's like, you have the opportunity. You don't have kids, you're not married. Like, this is your moment to risk it all. Like if I lost my house, lost my car, I'll make it back. Like I'll figure it out. But like, I don't have kids to worry about. I don't have all these things. So I'm like, but in 5 years, I might have all that. So this is your moment. This, like, you have to do this now. And so, yeah, it's just like, just committing to it. That was really the biggest thing. And not only committing to it, but just being focused, like just picking a lane and just sticking with it. I think I could have been successful in any of the businesses that I bought, but I was like, what's my opportunity value? I'm like, crafting my life, because, the business I had, they were local businesses. So like, if I wanted to like go overseas for 6 months, like I couldn't do that with the other business, but with this online business, I could. So I just that was why I picked it. But, I was thinking about what does my life look like? Where do I want to be in 10 years? And the opportunity value in the agency space is just significant. Like if you do it right, you can make a lot of money. And so, yeah, I just picked it, put all my eggs in one basket and jumped in 2 feet in, spent a lot of money, wasted a lot of money, learned a lot of mistakes, but I, the iteration was quicker because I just fully committed to it.
I love that. It's the key though with yourself. And unlike so many people, as many people will invest in something and then forget that they actually have to invest their time and their energy and the expense into it as well. But you've always been all in, and you're always every call I think I've done inside of Elite, you've been on those calls. You're there and you show up every week, and you've got something to bring to the table. You've got something you're learning and whatever. And that's massive, and that's the reason why you're being able to grow. Like that's the reason why you're being able to quite literally quadruple your revenue, almost triple your revenue. Presumably now, of course, well, I say presumably for the context of the video, but I know this already, you're not able to run this agency by yourself anymore, which is a difficult thing, and probably a mental barrier that you had for a long time, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're like, I'm this experienced guy, how the hell am I going to get someone else in who's going to even come close to me? Like, how has that process been of like, knowing that you now, if you want to grow, you're going to have to get people in, like relinquishing that control? Has it been straightforward? Has it been difficult? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah, man, it's like anything that I've learned. It's great. It's bad. It's like somewhere in between. It's definitely like been a learning curve for sure. I think understanding that it's a skill that you have to develop, like you're not just be good at it the first time. And I think what I learned this year was that, where I struggled in the past, you're not going to find, a great employee like right off the bat. And maybe you will get lucky, but it really, you got to be a good boss. Like you have to provide the training, the support, all these things. And I think where I made the mistake, and I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs also make the mistake, is like trying to find that perfect fit, like thinking you'll hire someone and they'll just come in and solve all your problems for you, or be an exact clone of you. It doesn't really work that way. You have to like really systemize your processes. You have to be really dialed in that, so that when you do bring somebody on, they know they have instructions and they have guidance and they have training and leadership. And so I think where I was successful this year was bringing people on to replace myself. And so things that I was doing day to day, where I already knew what that looked like, I already knew what that role. And then where I failed in hiring this year was hiring people to solve problems for me that I really didn't know how it worked. And I was hoping that he could just come on and just build out these systems for me. But, at least for what I was paying for it, it really was not, it was not very successful. And so, hired slowly, fired really quickly. I went through a lot of different candidates where I thought they were just going to come in and solve my problems, but they ultimately needed my help to kind of be successful. And so I'm in a moment right now where we've dialed back a lot on the staff. I was thinking I was like growing too quickly. And so I was like, all right, scale back a little bit, build out the systems, and then hire to replace them. And so I think, every entrepreneur is different, but for me specifically, I'm the kind of person that needs to like roll up my sleeves and kind of do something first so I understand how it works, so that when I do hire people, I know what the role looks like. I know what success in the role looks like. And so when I do hire them, I know kind of like what their job's going to look like and what to do. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. We've like skyrocketed our revenue, but I think December and January are going to be slow months for us, but intentionally. And the reason for that is that we've operationally, we were all over the place. I was just saying yes to any kind of jobs that would come in. And that's like, I kept raising my price and people were still saying yes to it. And I was like, this is great. Revenue's great. But we were all over the place with operation. The team was all over the place. We were disorganized. And I was like, there's no way I can scale past this. This is my new constraint. So we've scaled back on that. We're trying to get more organized operationally. We've niched down, which in June, I don't know if you remember, but that was like my biggest thing was, I didn't have a niche. I was literally accepting any client that had money that was willing to pay. And we were just figuring it out as we go. And we're doing great work, but like, when you don't have a niche or you don't have like something that you're focused on delivery, it operationally makes it really, really tough. And when it's tough operationally, you eat into your profits, because I'm needing to, as the owner and founder, I'm needing to hop on every single, with every team member to give them guidance as like, where we're going to go, versus like picking a lane and then saying, okay, all clients kind of look the same. Let's apply what we learned with that client to this client. So not only are the clients benefiting from us, but like the team is benefiting because they know what, from like start to finish, what the project looks like. And so we finally figured that out. And when I joined Elite in June, I remember that was like the biggest thing that you and George said was like, Waldo, you need to pick a niche. And I wanted you guys to answer that for me. But I think the answer is it doesn't matter what the niche is. You just got to pick one and really focus on that. So we were just accepting clients in all industries, and we got a success in a similar industry for 2 clients. And I was like, this is my niche. And so this past month, we've buckled down and we've gone after that. And I actually have a roadmap that I know if I do 100 sales calls in the next 3 months, and I know exactly how I get the attention of that avatar. I know like, all right, if I send this many emails, I'll get this many booked appointments. If I spend this much in ad spend, I'll get this many booked appointments. And for every booked appointment, I'll be able to convert at anywhere from 20 to 40% of those calls. And I'm like, have it mapped out now for the first time in my life. I see the vision. I see the finish line. And like, if all goes to plan, next year I could be in the $1 million revenue. Like I have it all mapped out. Like I have a sticky note on my desk here. I can read it to you. That's just how dialed in I've been. But like in the next 13 weeks, if all goes to plan, and this is considering January, so in 13 weeks will be a 3-month. That will give me 100 sales calls, and I think in the hundreds. So I'm like, all right, 100 sales calls will give me a lot of data to see like, do we pick a different niche or whatever. So I'm like committing to it the same way I committed to 12 months. So if we send a certain amount of emails, we spend a certain amount of ad spend, on average, we'll do 8 calls a week. And so like show up calls. And so within 8 calls a week, within 13 weeks, we convert at a 40% conversion. That will equal $80,000 in upfront onboarding fee revenue. And if we keep all, so it'll be about 40 clients or so, it'll be $120,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And if we keep those clients for the year, that's $1.4 million in annual revenue. So I was like, holy shit, that's exactly what I need to do to hit that 7-figure mark. And so we're going all in on that. And you saw in the group chat yesterday, I signed our first one yesterday in this niche. And so I just like, now I know how to do it, so it's like, let's just multiply this. So super excited. And we start onboarding them today, and just like having a client that's the same as a client that we've had in the past, onboarding is so easy. Like I already know exactly what it looks like. And so where it used to take us 3 weeks to onboard a client, we might be able to onboard this client in 4 days. And so the client's happier, we're happier, my team knows exactly how to do it. like, so that, which means that it won't need me in the process. I can be able to like start weaning myself out of the process, which is my goal. Like, it feels really good to be in this place for after 15 years of like just running around with my head cut off like this. I feel excited about the future, dude. It's awesome.
That's amazing, man. You got the clarity. You got the clarity, and
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing as an entrepreneur, is knowing where you're going. And it's not going to be a straight path to that goal. There's going to be hiccups. There's going to be mistakes, but it's having the clarity on where you're going. It's just so great. And you never did anything wrong in the past by being broad. Like, that's what you do to go from 0 to 10. It's just very different when you're going 10 plus. We have to hone in. We have to niche down. We have to know what our service offering is. Like, it's like what I always say, like, opportunity is so scarce at a certain level, and then opportunity is actually abundant, and we have to just we start off by saying yes to everything, and then we end up saying no to everything apart from a very small amount of things. And that's a very hard mental transition, because you're going from like this famine mindset where you believe that making money is all about just saying yes, yes, yes. And then you have to get used to the idea that making money is actually about saying no, 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 which is just the reverse of what you've been used to for so long. So yeah, it's amazing, man. I'm so glad. And now, like, I mean, presumably in June, when you were at like around 10K, like, you would have been happy with getting to 20K. You would have been happy with getting to 30K. Those would have been like very large, lofty goals. So like, what is beyond, like, what is end? Is there, are you playing the infinite game? Is there an end state? Is there like a finite goal that you're working towards beyond like this 100K stepping stone? Or is the 100K a month the kind of the final path? Like, what is now I suppose your world has been opened, like, hypothetically, like, what does the future look like as far as your vision?
Yeah, it's a great question. I ask myself that all the time. I think, the way I grew up, when I was a kid, I just like, I was like, I'm going to be a millionaire. I just knew it. Like, but as you start getting older, you're like, all right, am I? Like, you start kind of like doubting that belief. But like, it was just so ingrained in me as a kid. I was like, I just want to be successful. But, that was one of the things you kind of mentioned early on in Elite, was that, define that. And so I think I struggled to define that, because I think I just one of those types of people like the Hermosis or whatever, where I just in the game, like I don't think I'll ever hit that like, oh, this is enough. But I will say that I'm starting to develop the mile markers along the way. Like, I want to get to here, I want to get to here, I want to get to here, and that kind of gives me that North Star. But I don't think I will ever hit a point where I'm like, okay, I made $10 million, like, that's enough, I can quit. Like, but I will say, like, there is an element where, I've been busting my ass for 15 years. I would like to take a break, or I would like to get to a point where I don't need to work every day. And I don't think I've hit that. And so I think that would define success, of knowing that, okay, if I did want to quit, I'm allowed to. Like, I don't have to work anymore to pay the bills or support my family or anything. Like, that would be success to me. But yeah, where my North Star is now is, I do want to hit 7 figures. That's definitely my goal. And for the first time in my life, I actually have a roadmap for how I'll get there. I was joking with George the other day, but one of the things I was like, and I know this is probably not even on the table, but I was like, but I really want to be, I'm like, George, I want to be so successful that Jordan wants me to be one of these elite leaders, because like, that would just be so cool, because Jordan, I don't know if you remember this, but a year ago, you opened up a position to be for a coach for the Affluent Academy, and I actually applied because I was just so down on everything. I was like, I'm giving up. I'm going to take a normal job. And right before our interview, I texted you and I said, and I want to withdraw my application, because I'm like, my entrepreneurship journey does not end here. And it's kind of funny now. Fast forward a year, I'm I'm sorry, but I'm glad I didn't take that job, because I think there's an element of me that likes giving back, that likes teaching, and so like my retirement dream would be to be somebody that's offering education in some regard and helping entrepreneurs. Because when I grew up, I don't feel like it was as abundant as it is now. There was no YouTube. There's no, like, every once in a while you had, like, when Shark Tank came out, that was like kind of revolutionary, and that was like, all right, like, I can kind of like, it was kind of like glamorized entrepreneurship. But when I was a kid, when I wanted to be that millionaire when I was 5 years old, like, there was nothing. Like, there was like no TV shows, and this pre-internet kind of, so it's like there was really nothing. So I kind of felt like I had this fire inside of me that wanted to be successful, but I didn't have anyone to look up to. I didn't have mentors. I didn't have master classes, or, my schools didn't offer programs. Like there was just nothing. And so it was always my goal is like, when I make it big, I'm going to give back. I want to provide that education, whatever that looks like. And so there's just like, it's just a passionate thing for mine, but it's like, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, it's kind of cool looking back at that.
Just for context for everyone else, George is our head of client success inside of Elite, or inside of the academy business in general. But yeah, he told me that, and it made me very happy, because we'd love to explore you being a coach at some point with us. Because I mean, what we need to work towards, what we need to push now is that 100K a month. What better person to be a coach inside of Elite than someone who's gone through the program and has actually hit 100K a month with our help? So it's something we'd love to explore with you, especially considering how long you've been with us. So yeah, it was very nice to receive the message from George that you said that. What is it for you that you think makes Elite stand out from other programs? Does it sit unique versus other things that you have gone through, and if so, why?
Yeah, I'm probably not the most well versed in this space. I've just kind of dabbled in the master classes, and I'm really fortunate to have found you, but I haven't seen any sort of program in the past that does anything close to what Elite does. And I think I said this in the last time we chatted, but having access to mentors, and not just one, like multiple, and they're all successful in different areas, that I can't even describe the value of that. And we just talked earlier that being able to have iterations of every time I progress, being able to bounce ideas off or say, hey, I'm thinking about this or that, and then having that feedback, and it's not something where it's like I need, every year I have a 2-day window to ask one question. It's like every week we get an hour with 7 different people, and I can ask whatever I want, or even just listening, just that constant repeated aspect of like the people in the community are all struggling with what you're struggling with. I think the hardest thing for me as an entrepreneur pre-meeting you, Jordan, was that when I was struggling, there's no one in my world that can resonate with what I'm feeling. You try and relay it to your girlfriend or your mom or whoever, and they're like, oh, try this, but they don't understand it. They have no context for the situation of what you're feeling, and they're not successful, so the advice they're giving you is going to be poor. You're literally helping us with our path because you've walked the path. Like, oh yeah, this is what I did, and this is how we got successful. I remember when I first joined Elite, I was very skeptical, and I was actually kind of pissed because I just spent a lot of money, and I was like, I better get my freaking money's worth out of this thing. And you guys didn't like overpromise anything, but there was an element of like, oh, we will help you get to 100K. And I remember like I was always struggled with outreach. I just never had a good outreach system. And I challenged you, Jordan. I said, tell me. I'm like, here's my email. I'm like, I'm not getting any responses. I'm doing these cold email approach, and your response was so simple. It was like, just change this line, change the subject. And I was so like I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna come back next week, and I'm gonna tell you that it didn't work. And like, I remember like I changed that one thing, and yeah, within like a couple of days, like I was getting all these like replies and a couple booked appointments, and I was like, holy crap, it was like that simple. Like I've been struggling for 6 months, spending all this money on cold email outreach, and all you told me to do was change a couple words, and then all of a sudden it was successful. And so like that just made me such a believer in the program after that, because I was like, okay, it's not like this magic 8-ball where you're gonna give us like, you're gonna open this door and it's gonna be like, here's all the secrets that you've been missing out for 15 years. It's like just little incremental things that you just change that one word, all of a sudden it works. And then just applying that every week for 6 months. I mean, that's the secret sauce. Just changing little things. But I don't think anyone who hasn't done it wouldn't be able to do that unless they walk that path. And so I think that's why you can look at my email and say, oh, change this word or change that, because you've probably been through my shoes and you tried it the first way, it didn't work, and you learn through your failures or through mentors or however. But just having that guidance is just huge.
thousands of emails I've probably written over the years now. And you're, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it? Aren't you getting like one meeting booked from 100 emails at the moment? Which is like
No, I'm getting one booked appointment from 50 emails right now.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
Just for anyone listening to this, that is not typical. Like, please don't join Elite thinking I'm going to give you the secret sauce to get just one, like, for everybody else. Because, like, yeah, you might be able to get close to that, but that is incredible. Like, that is so cool. But yeah, that's amazing, man. And it's probably testament to the leverage that you've built inside of your agency, the case studies that you have, the presence that you've got online. It's this accumulation of all these things, which is something that we really like emphasize. Fortunately, you came to us with really good foundation. You've already built that over time. But like it's so important, like, you know, inside of Elite, we emphasize this leverage library. It's like understanding what you've got, understanding the way you're perceived, understanding like the assets that you have. But yeah, that's awesome, man. And I'm so glad that advice like worked well for you, and you've now got a predictable acquisition system, because that is really the main problem that most agency owners face. Like, how can I solve acquisition? How can I get it predictable? And obviously you've got ads running now as well. You've got that funnel running, and so you've got that multi-medium, like, and so it's if one thing doesn't work, then you've got another thing to figure out, and it's just, yeah, it's a lovely place to be. What would you say to someone who is listening to this right now and they're on the fence about joining Elite? They've been thinking about it, maybe same as you, feeling a bit skeptical about it initially. Like, what would you say to the person in that position?
I would say, if whatever you're charging, if it's like, if you have that in the bank account, like, spend it. But I will say, and I can't think of anyone specific, but there are people that when I do hop on calls, they're like, yeah, you know, I hopped on one call a couple months ago. I don't really hop on calls. And I don't understand that, because like, if you're going to invest in it, invest in it. Like, I'm the best example of, like you said, I'm on every call, like every week. Like, there's some calls I miss. Sometimes I don't, not every week I'm on there, but I paid for this, and it shows. Like, the cold email is just a great example, but like the other day you were helping me with my VSL, you know, you're helping me with my hooks. Like, you give me guidance, and I can message you privately. I can do all these things, and I've seen the return on investment. I mean, you know, if we want to talk numbers real quick, 6 months it's been. I started in June. It's now December. In June, I keep this on my desk too, because it's just a reminder of how I've grown. But in June, I was at $8,000 in monthly revenue. 1 month later, I doubled it. I was at 19,000. August, I was at 13,000. September, 30,000. October, 40,000. November, 35,000. And it's just by like just changing little things that I was doing. But like, ultimately, only join if you're ready to work. Because if you come in thinking that Jordan's going to solve all your problems for you, he's not. You got to do the work. It's just those little tweaks, like, hey, like, I'm going to throw all this mess on a piece of paper. Jordan, tell me like what you think about it. And he's going to give you those little pointers that are going to make you convert at 50 emails per one booked appointment. I mean, like, I remember my VSL, it was another thing like that, where I was like, I had this like aggressive headline, and you're like, no, you should change it to be like XYZ will give you XYZ. And I changed it, and my VSL converts really well too. Like, I think I'm at a $20 cost per lead, and like a $60 cost per appointment. So it's just like, it's crazy. Just those little like nuggets that you give, but like, ultimately you have to do the work, you know? And so if you're hesitant about joining Elite, don't do it unless you're honestly like, you're ready to put in the work, and you're motivated and ambitious, because that's the only way you'll be successful. You're going to look at it and be like, you're going to join and go, you know, I'm not successful. Like Waldo said, I'll be successful. I'll join. No, you're like, you have to do the work. Like, there's no, you know, golden egg here. Like, you know, ultimately it's going to come down to your ability to deliver. But yeah, if you're in that place where you just you're at 10K and you want to get to 100K, like, Elite's going to be perfect for you if you put in the work.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure catching up on this. Like, obviously we speak weekly anyway, but I mean, like, this just, it's nice diving into this personally, and yeah, it feels like always a full circle moment, having a chat and checking in on your journey. And we will absolutely make sure we do another one of these when you hit that 100K a month point, and figure out and unpack all of the lessons and probably some of the headaches that you had on that path as well.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully in 12 months I'll be a millionaire. You know, I'll fly into England and buy you a steak dinner or something, Jordan. I don't know.
Nice, man. Well, no, thanks so much, man.
Yeah.
Are you particularly active on any social channels at the moment that you'd like us to put in the description for people to check you out? Or are you keeping yourself to yourself? What's the situation?
Yeah, I'm definitely too busy for content right now, but it is on the horizon for sure. So nothing to report yet, but if anyone wants to connect with me, LinkedIn, Waldo Webster, for sure. Definitely want to start posting on there and love to connect with anyone. Actually, the last interview I did have a few people add me and message me and said that they like my story. So feel free to connect with me. I would love to hear about you.
Love that. Love that. Thanks so much, bro.